Hello, I'm Dr. Joe Arminio. Welcome to my channel, America Resurgent, with myself as host. I begin with two questions. Is the Israeli regime converting its most problematical American critic into its most valuable public relations asset? In the process, is important truth at risk of being lost? Even before his gruesome death, Charlie Kirk may well have been America's most visible critic of the Israeli government. As such, Kirk's criticism was, I suggest, for the most part, on the mild side, and I am inclined to think that it was decidedly constructive. In any case, Kirk was no longer in lockstep with the Israeli Prime Minister after having expressed his first concern or two about Netanyahu in an interview that took place several days after the horrific Hamas attack of October 7, 2023. In this interview, Kirk asked a crucial question. How did Hamas manage to cross the Gaza security perimeter? How did Israel, which Kirk says is, quote, built like a fortress, unquote, and which, quote, again quoting Kirk, was by far the most alert country in the world, unquote, miss this crossing? Several more days later, Kirk asked even more pointedly if, quote, a stand-down order, unquote, had been given. In these last 2 years, Kirk has continued to ask troublesome questions of the Israeli regime, although he continues to think highly of Israel for the most part. Also, Charlie Kirk has served as a moderator of others, such as Tucker Carlson, who have asked tough questions of the Israeli regime as well. In the last several months, Tel Aviv has rolled out an unprecedented public relations campaign, what it calls the Esther Project. And evidently, an important part of this campaign is the appropriation of the memory of Charlie Kirk. In effect, they would revive the Charlie Kirk of 2 years or more ago, before he began to question Netanyahu. I wonder if the net effect of the Esther Project will be good. Like a lot of Americans, including Charlie Kirk, I myself care deeply about Israel and want to see them win in Gaza. But there is value in open or relatively open, fair debate, even in time of war. This is especially the case for America, which is not directly involved in the defense of Israel's borders, which is the senior partner in the US-Israel alliance, and which is the upholder of order not only in the Middle East, but everywhere else around the world. On October 1, the Times of Israel reported the details of the Israeli Esther Project. Israel has never undertaken anything like this before, spending $150 million or 20 times more on social media messaging than ever before. The reporting of the Times included posting a letter said to have been sent from Kirk to Netanyahu in May. This letter affirms the righteousness of Israel's Gaza war. There is no quibbling about the conduct of the war. Any doubts that Kirk may have had about the Israeli war policy is gone missing. The letter perfectly dovetails with the Esther Project. This is not to say that the letter is pure fiction. For one thing, it raises several questions about Israeli war policy and rebuts each concern. Also, it addresses the situation on the ground in America, suggesting that the Gaza war protest is tipping U.S. public sympathies against Netanyahu. However, it accounts for the decline in his U.S. public support, not because of any possible misconduct in the prosecuting of the war, rather because Israel's public relations effort is antiquated. Whether Kirk sent this letter to Tel Aviv or not, I believe it is consistent with the Kirk of 2 years or more ago, not of the more recent Charlie Kirk. Israel's effort to revive the Charlie Kirk of 2 years or more ago should be seen in a wider context. For one thing, a certain US-based Project Esther preceded the Esther Project, an immensely accomplished and influential American think tank, some of whose staff invariably wind up in Republican presidential administrations, entered into the information war between Hamas and Israel in a big way on the first anniversary of the October 7 Hamas attack. The Heritage Foundation published its Project Esther with this subtitle: A National Strategy to Combat Anti-Semitism. The authors of this Project Esther, Christian evangelicals for the most part, fume about a so-called, quote, Hamas social network, unquote, on American soil, and would extirpate this network. How so? Marshal a network, a vast network of countervailing private groups and government agencies. Put down those who fan or foment political violence. Tilt the information war in Israel's favor in the next 12 to 24 months. What Project Esther calls for is very good, up to a point. Hamas is a threat, and the powerful globalists who support Hamas are a menace too. But there is the risk that legitimate dissent will be muzzled and that any and all criticism of Israel will be treated as anti-Semitic. I don't think this is an idle risk. For one thing, Project Esther doesn't even entertain the possibility that the pro-Palestinian protesters have an argument or two in their favor. Has the Trump administration heeded the advice of Project Esther? For instance, in its dismantling of the Gaza war protests on sundry college campuses, especially at Columbia University, have they moved in step with the Heritage Foundation's proposal? In May, U.S. House Republicans, at the behest of the President, introduced into what would become the Big Beautiful Bill a highly controversial measure that may well be in step with Project Esther. They wanted to empower the Secretary of the Treasury to designate nonprofits as terrorist supporting organizations as he saw fit, and to revoke their tax-exempt status. This measure would have been at his disposal without or with very little due process. The version of the Big Beautiful Bill that was enacted into law on July 3 did not include this particular measure. Perhaps the sponsors of the measure had concluded that U.S. support for Israel had ebbed to too low a level. It is at this juncture that Israel's Esther Project may be picking up the slack of an incompletely fulfilled Project Esther. There is a certain irony in what may be the Esther Project's extension of Project Esther. Some of the very money that the United States showers upon Israel, $22 billion alone since the October 7 Hamas attack, or 3 times the typical annual allowance. Some of this money may be cycled back into the United States in the guise of Israeli paid influencers and marketing. I conclude this video with this thought about the Esther in question and Charlie Kirk. Both the Esther Project and Project Esther invoke the story of the biblical Jewish Esther, who lived in ancient Persia. The then king of Persia threatened to destroy totally the innocent Jewish settlement in his empire. Esther spoke up. She spoke to power. She risked everything in attempting to persuade the king to spare her people. She succeeded. How does Charlie Kirk compare to Esther? We know he had the ear of both President Trump and the Israeli Prime Minister. He had begun to speak up for innocents, whoever they were, whether Israelis, Palestinians, Americans, or what have you. May America and Israel carefully and honestly weigh the merits of the Charlie Kirk that lived before and after October 7, 2023.